Joining us now from the capital is Syed Akbaruddin. He's the Chief Coordinator for the India-Africa Summit. He's been the MEA spokesperson and will be India's next permanent representative at the UN. A pleasure seeing you again on the show, sir. Just, we're playing perfect hosts here.
Thank you, Amitabh, for giving me the opportunity to...
Yeah, it seems we're playing perfect hosts. We've just lost by a huge margin to South Africa.
Amitabh, always the best team triumphs on the sporting field. So today was South Africa's day. India certainly does not grudge it. We are the best of friends on and off the field. We will have our day too.
What, on a more serious note, what substantially do you expect to come out of the summit?
I think what we set out to achieve was to get all of Africa on a single platform in New Delhi to engage with us. That, I can confirm to you, is now a reality. It's never happened before. Never in the history of any country's engagement with Africa have all 54 African states representatives as well as the representatives of the African Union been present in one capital to make common cause
not even
for a vision
the summits that
they
the US,
will
China,
espouse
Japan
for the
have
future.
held?
You're right. This is the first time that 54 African states and the African Union together are sending representatives to one summit. That is because India is widely accepted in Africa. We have friends all over Africa and they recognize that India is a tried and trusted partner and friend.
There are 5 major points that will be discussed, but apart from those, Mr. Akbaruddin, will terrorism also be discussed? We've seen the rise of Daesh, the Islamic State in Africa and Nigeria. It's of course Shabab as well, al-Shabaab and also Al-Qaeda.
Well, when heads of state meet, they always discuss issues which are on top of their agenda. Certainly for us, terrorism is an important issue and increasingly it has found resonance in several parts of Africa, and we do expect that this will be an area where we discuss bilaterally as well as plurilaterally and multilaterally.
Do you expect the Prime Minister to make a trip to mainland Africa? What, there were 27 lakh Indians on that continent?
Yes, Prime Minister has himself emphasized even today how important the relations between India and Africa are. I'd like to mention to you, he's traveled to 2 African countries,
yes, Seychelles,
which are Mauritius and Seychelles. And you can be certain that in the forthcoming year, there will be scope for interaction at the highest level between India and Africa, including on the mainland continent, as you put up. As far as we are concerned, we treat all of Africa together.
And of course, how does the government, there's no controversy vis-a-vis the Sudanese president who's been declared a war criminal by the ICC. Of course, we're not part of Statute 9.
Amitabh, as hosts, civilizationally, as well as in terms of international legal obligations, all heads of government and heads of state enjoy diplomatic immunity, and we treat our guests with full hospitality. And that counts for every African president or representative who is coming for this summit. This is a summit of a celebration. This is a summit of India-Africa partnership. So let's look at it in that perspective.
Syed Akbaruddin, the Additional Secretary and the Chief Coordinator of the India-Africa Summit. Thank you so much for giving us some of your time, sir. And earlier I spoke to Dr. Vijay Chauthiwala, the in charge of the Foreign Affairs Department of the Bharatiya Janata Party, Pawan Verma, former diplomat and Rajya Sabha MP of the JDU, and Ambassador Vivek Kajju, ex-Secretary West with the Foreign Ministry. Dr. Vijay Chauthiwala, if I can come to you, this is a big ramping up in terms of the earlier two summits.
That's correct.
Give us a little bit more about why the Modi government has decided to do this.
I think the 15 countries which were represented by a one-jewel formula, it was not adequate in the present scenario. India would like to have relationship and strong ties with each one of them because each one has different strengths. And therefore, the expanding the scope of this summit is very timely.
Pawan Verma, would you say this is just building up on what the earlier governments had done, or do you see this as part of the Modi government's strategic and a push, in fact, in terms of foreign policy?
You know, foreign policy is a continuum, and there has been a great emphasis traditionally in building and consolidating upon traditional ties with Africa. In fact, we have a great deal of goodwill in Africa. I have been Joint Secretary Africa myself in my earlier avatar as a diplomat. So I think an Africa summit is a goodwill, but there is one weakness here. I think what the Modi foreign policy establishment lacks is rigorous follow-up. So there is a great deal of summitry with its pomp and pageantry, but not enough follow-up.
Not enough follow-up. Ambassador Kajju, you've also been Secretary West and dealt with this a lot. You're just coming from the editors' conference as well, where you moderated. How do you see this? Is it a continuum, or is there some kind of a added push here?
No, I think there is a push, decided push, which, in all fairness, is good. The Banjul formula
14.
was a formula of the African Union.
Yeah.
But that didn't prevent countries from inviting, like China, Japan, the US, from inviting all African states, and the Modi government has followed suit, and that's okay. On implementation, again, implementation has to be improved. The implementation of previous Indian governments on projects especially infrastructure projects, has been not entirely satisfactory. So, to say that the non-implementation of projects is a unique aspect of the Modi administration, I think would be misleading.
You were saying it's good, but are we playing catch-up with China here in Africa?
I don't think we should look at this as a kind of catch-up. We have our own strengths in Africa. For example, capacity building. In fact, after the Addis Ababa summit, which was the second summit, I recollect reading some Chinese literature where they were lauding the Indian approach to Africa.
Non-exploitative.
Exactly. The perception in Africa is that capacity building is a good thing. What we will have to avoid is the blatant exploitative practices of the Chinese company.
Do the Africans see it as that?
I think many Africans do. And now that our private sector is getting more and more involved, I think the message that the Modi government will have to give them is to show great sensitivity to African concerns and African interests.